one podcast, mining the Magic the Gathering subreddits for salt. This is the Howling Salt Mine.
It's the Howling Salt Mine. The Howling Salt Mine.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Howling Salt Mine podcast, the podcast where we are delving into those salty mines of the Magic the Gathering subreddits, finding the saltiest posts we can find. We want salty stories, salty confessionals, and then we're bringing them back up in our mine cart and sharing them with you all, our prospectors. As always, I'm your host, Sam, and I am here joined today with my two co-hosts, Mike and Tony. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello, gentlemen.
Yeah, that one.
Nice.
And ladies, we can't, come on.
Well, I thought he was saying hello, gentlemen, because we are
you guys
gentlemen.
are the gentlemen.
I was actually chatting. I was chatting with these two guys that I climb with, and they literally were like, "You're like old. You're like an actual millennial." And I was like, "Fuck." Well, I guess when you put it that way, I was like, "Thanks, guys."
Actual millennial. Ouch.
You're not that old, Tony. You're 31, right? You just turned 31?
I noticed the other day, like I was filling out some form where they asked for my birthday, and I needed to scroll, like not once, like scroll a little bit to get to the birthday. And I was like, wow, I guess we're getting there, huh?
Those forms are always ridiculous because they start with the current year. And you're like, I know that this is just something that's coded into the template, but like, what baby's filling out the form?
Yeah.
You know, I don't think there's a newborn coming in and, filling out your membership card for fucking Sam's Club or anything.
Yeah. For real.
You've got a club, Sam?
Yeah, it's called the Patreon, the Howling Salt Mine Patreon.
Hey!
Find us at www.patreon.com/howlingsaltmine. We have a Discord. We have monthly new episodes.
People are talking about it. They're in it. It's cool.
People are doing it. It's fun. We play games with each other sometimes. It's great.
Yeah.
We talk about cards.
It actually is super fun. Like
good
cheesy fake advertisement aside, it's been a blast. I think in our last episode we talked about how it would be a blast because it wasn't actually set up yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those manifestations really worked.
Yeah, those manifestations did work. I mean, now that it is actually here, it is great, and I love it. It's a ton of fun. It's almost completely replaced our regular Magic Discord that we had, which is funny. Whenever one of us actually posts in that, I'm like, who the fuck is posting in our old Discord? You get in there, like a tumbleweed rolls by, you're like, what is this place? I do love it though. It's a great little community. I'm super thankful for everybody who's joined, and if you're on the fence about it, come on in. We just chat about Magic cards all day. We show pictures of our cute pets, support each other and be cool friends. It's great.
I love the pet channel a lot.
Yeah, the pet channel is
clutch.
People have like great pictures of their pets too, and I'm like here for it.
Oh my god, yeah. There's some beautiful animals. There's some lovely little kitty cats on there. I feel like Davey crushes that channel. He's got like the best little pet pics.
Like the bow tie.
The bow tie on his dog.
It's festive.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's very good. Well, you probably could tell from the title of this episode, but this is another mail time episode. We are going to be reading some of that listener mail, some of those sweet, sweet, salty stories that we receive from our listeners, and, spreading our wisdom.
But Sam, what's salt?
That's a great question, Tony. Salt
so you're gonna yell at me. You like gave it a second. I was like, was I not supposed to ask?
See, that's all I need to do now.
I just throw me off. You're in my head.
Give you a second of silence. Yeah, salt is. Let's see, what is salt? Huh? Salt is when you're setting up your Patreon and you're so ready for it to launch, and then you realize that no one can get into the Discord for the first 24 hours, and you're fucking flipping out and like Googling everything and just being like, what did I do wrong? And people are like, I can't get into the Discord immediately, can I? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
But then you realize it's just because it's the first day of the month.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. Joking aside, that does make me salty. Apparently, Patreon, like the delay with the Discord thing is normal. And then when I was Googling it, it was like, also, if it's the first of the month, it'll just take way longer for some reason. And I was like, cool, we launched our Patreon on December 1st. That's great. That's going to be really good for me.
You also think like they'd put something up somewhere, because it's definitely all about like, that's when they'd be collecting paychecks, right? So it's like on this day, like we have like system delays. Like, how easy would that be to stick in a banner somewhere so that you like don't do that?
Yeah, or even have it be in like the Patreon sign up message for the patrons coming in.
Yeah,
you know, because they were like, I think I'm fucking up the Discord Patreon connection. It's like, I don't think you are. I think it's on my end. So it's this big mystery of like, is it on your end? Is it on my end?
Yeah.
Just like, and when that stuff happens, I'm just like, I did it wrong and I'm bad, you know, like I just get so in my head about it. And it was at like 8:30 and I had a 9:00 meeting and I was like, I got to figure this out right now.
Yeah, right. Those are the worst, because then you're like crunching to try and get something done just before you have to like,
oh my God.
I fucking hate that.
This is awful. Shout out to Brett for being the first person in the Patreon. Like Brett and Pat joined up super, super fast. And because of that, Brett let us know that this was an issue. And we were able to like troubleshoot it with him, because we'd be like, are you in yet? And he's like, nope, not yet. And we're like, fuck, it's still a problem. Just like constantly an issue. What you doing over there, Mike? What's going on? You muted. You've been muted for like 5 minutes.
I'm sorry. I fixed it. It's fixed.
You know how to VLOOKUP now?
It's finally looked up V and I can be done with it. Thank God.
Nice.
What is this little project you're working on?
I was fixing how we were tracking what card was the salty card of the week. The one responsibility that I have, I finally have effectively solved for. So that's good.
Hey, that's great. Right before the end of the first quarter, too. That's awesome.
Yeah, my manager is going to give me a glowing performance review for that one.
Yeah. Actually, I think we're in our second quarter, technically.
Really?
No, we're still.
We haven't decided our fiscal year yet.
This
is true.
I guess it only just started because we only just started making money. And by making money, I mean, you know, covering our costs.
Already costs.
Yeah. Backfilling all the costs we've already incurred.
Yeah.
We're only sort of in the red, mostly.
Yeah. It wasn't a big one, but one of the ones I have that's just sitting on my desk is I bought like a fuckload of Rain of Salt. Like I just like bought a bunch of these cards. And I love that you actually can see on MTG stocks the day that I bought them, because you see like a spike and then it comes back down.
Manipulating the market.
Yeah. I was like, it's real.
I did the same with Sowing Salt and Salt Blast. And I used them as like the backdrop for my photos on Instagram. And somebody commented, I forget who it was, but somebody commented and they were like, what? No Rain of Salt? And I was like, Tony bought them all. Like when I went to go buy them, there was literally none left that I could find. Tony bought every single Rain of Salt that was up at the time.
That's amazing.
Cornered the market. Yeah, you're not getting reimbursed for that, Tony.
Yeah, I figured.
Some of those early expenditures, we're just eating them.
Those were just for fun.
Yeah, exactly. We'll give those away someday, maybe. Who knows?
No, we won't.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. That's a lot of like mail logistics. You never know.
They've got so much sentimental value at this point as well.
This is true. I've just been staring at them every day on my desk.
That makes them more valuable.
Just gaining. Anyways.
Well, speaking of mail.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, dude. Wow.
Hell.
Oh my God.
Got him.
Which that topic was so seamless. I'm not even sure what topic, or that segue was so seamless. I'm not even sure what topic we're on anymore. Are we still talking about mail? Are we
Can't
talking
even
about questions?
speak straight anymore. Like,
talking about transitions.
Yeah. Well, I'll edit that out so no one else will know that I fucked up my words. I made a word mistake.
Love that.
Well, yeah, let's get into it, guys. Want to do some questions here?
Oh,
Sure do.
You know it.
Here's the salt that never faults. It makes me want to tap my vault. When it comes, I must exalt salt. Just busting it out quick this time.
Not a lot of fanfare for that one.
You want fanfare? Here's the salt that
shit.
never faults. It makes me wanna tap my vault. When it comes, I must exalt salt. Jazzy.
We're moving ever closer to, again, that, like, hey, well, welcome back to the Howling Salt Mine. I don't know why we always go here, but like,
Yeah, that nasally, like,
yeah,
old timey radio, Carney
Yes.
kind of thing. Yeah.
I guess it's just our vibe. I'm into it.
It is our vibe.
It
Please
is.
don't kill my vibe.
Yeah, energy
Yeah.
from-
All right. Now that we are screeching to a grinding halt, let's get into a question.
We're really covering a lot of ground today.
Love that.
So this one comes to us from a Reddit friend, Accidental TPK, also a patron on the show. What's up, dude? You guys aren't going to say hi? What the fuck?
Well, I felt like you provided so much hype. Did
Yeah,
I?
that was a lot of
I
context.
was gonna be like, yo, I know that guy.
Yeah, you were
No,
gonna
that's
and you
fine.
should have.
Well, I gave a. They can't see the
It's a
what I'm
visual
giving,
gag.
but like I gave it to him.
Yeah, Tony gave a middle finger to the camera.
No, that's fuck you.
Tony, oh my gosh.
Tony, that was fucked up, dude.
You guys
Yeah.
suck.
Super nice too. You don't
Yeah.
have to.
Man,
Wow.
that's brutal.
Oh, what did he say?
All right. Accidental TPK comes to us with 2 stories this week. 2, count them, 2 salty stories.
1, 2.
Wow. This will definitely be passed along to your manager.
It's outrageous behavior. Fuck.
Need you to settle down.
All right, let's do that take again. God, fucking.
Yeah.
Let me get this guy out of here.
Well, welcome back to the Howling Salt Mine.
Nice. All right.
All right, let's dig into this one. Hello, Salt Miners. I'm a big fan of the show, and I've been binging it for the last 2 weeks. But now I'm caught up, so I thought I'd share a couple salty stories with you. Love it. Love to hear that people are binging our shit. Story 1 is titled Spontaneous Salt Genesis. I run a golem deck that has Ich Tekic, Salvage Splicer, and Rebek, Architect of Ascension, as partner commanders. Because of Rebek's ability, I've included artifacts from 0 to 8 mana costs evenly spread through the deck to give my artifacts the best chance of being protected. The deck is pretty mid as far as power goes, but one member of my pod hates Rebek so much. He will save all of his targeted removal for Rebek. Counterspells, destroy, exile, you name it. He will let me do whatever as long as I don't cast her.
Sounds shitty. Just let him play it.
I'm trying to think, do we have anything like this in our pod? Like, do we have anything that gets someone so salty that they save removal for it? Do you guys ever like save removal because you're like, oh, I know Tony's going to be dropping down, blah, blah, blah.
I feel like you guys are saving removal for Paco, but
Oh, yeah. And you're right. I definitely am.
Yeah, I think it just becomes an artifact of like knowing the deck well enough that we certainly have those. So if it's like Prismatic Bridge even got that way where it's
Yeah.
like
100%.
if the bridge lands, just got to get rid of it immediately. And then
Yeah.
it especially for decks like that are kind of like mana hungry or like takes a lot to do that and it's like really reliant on it. It's just like it's such a buzzkill. Like it makes playing that deck so sad. Like I don't play bridge anymore because they don't let me, fans. They don't.
but I also think that for us, those are mostly decks where like if that piece stays on the board, it just gets out of hand with the value really quickly. Like Prismatic Bridge, Paco, like they're all things that just like rip you free cards,
Yeah.
which Rebecca's like totally not doing. So it's a different sort of threat where it's protecting your pieces, but it is a little bit different, I think.
Well,
I actually don't remember. Is Ich Tekic also an artifact?
Um,
It's just like
I
a
don't
human
think
Just a
so.
splicer. Yeah.
Yeah, I think splicers are non-artifacts generally.
Gotcha. I
Gotta
mean,
run
it's
that
certainly a
liquid
pretty
metal
powerful
torque.
effect, right? Like, I get why someone would not want that to stick around.
It's interesting that it warps how this other player uses their removal. Like they're holding up removal to get rid of Rebecca when it comes down, and not removing artifacts. Like the whole point of Rebecca is that it protects your other artifacts. And this other player is like, well, I'm not going to remove those artifacts because I got to save this removal for Rebecca when she comes down. It's like, all right, she's doing the same shit in the command zone.
For free.
Yeah, for free. You don't even have to
For
cast her.
0 mana. It's an eminence. It's an eminence ability.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at that point, like the blinders are on too tight. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
think sometimes you can get like tunnel vision for you can get tunnel vision with your threat assessment. And it sounds like that's what's going on here. Like you are way too focused on this one effect, and you really need to look at the board in general. You know, to be effective, you have to be casting out all these other artifacts for Rebecca to even provide that protection.
Maybe we should read Rebecca too, because it is a sort of specific effect. It's hinted at by the mail itself, because he mentions running different artifacts, but it's worth knowing.
Did you just call accidental TPK the mail?
I meant the mail, like what was mailed in. Oh man, that is funny though. I feel like there's enough like neckbeards out there unironically saying female that it would be very funny to start doing that with male to counterbalance that.
All right, so Rebecca, Architect of Ascension, a 3 colorless mana, 1 white mana for a 3/4 legendary creature human artificer. It has partner, of course. And it also says artifacts you control have protection from each converted mana cost among artifacts you control. So if you play a 0 cost artifact, your artifacts can't be hit by 0 cost things, so on and so forth. You got a 3 cost out, 3 cost things cannot target your stuff or deal damage or whatever, protection, all the shit that comes with protection. So, I mean, it's a powerful ability. I think it's really, really powerful if you have artifact creatures out, because the protection is like your creatures are unblockable. They're not taking damage. Obviously you want to have like a pretty good density from like 1 to 4. So you're giving yourself protection from the vast majority of removal spells out there.
You can't neglect running exactly 1 at 9 though, right? For dodge those blasphemous acts.
Yeah. What even is that? What artifact that's useful costs 9 mana?
Chroma's Memorial?
Don't worry, I got this, guys. I'll just Google MTG.
Fuck you, Sam.
Artifact cost 9.
But there's such an elegant Scryfall search for it. So
trying
nice.
to think if I could think of anything.
Darksteel Forge, which is probably useful to run anyway.
Oh, Mycosynth Lattice.
Phyrexian Triniform.
Portal to Phyrexia. This card is nuts.
Oh yeah, that's dope. That's a new one, right?
Yeah, that card is so cool.
Okay, all we've proven is that Rebecca is fucking OP. Counter her every time. Every fucking time.
No,
I think Rebecca is totally fine. Itchy Techic. Well, Itch Techic. We call him Itchy Techic. I don't know why.
Yeah, we do.
because he's itchy.
It's because he's itchy. That's the one to really watch out for. That one gets like fucking crazy value. Tony has an Itch Techic Togo deck that I made him for Secret Santa last year.
It's I.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as good now, but when I made it, it was really good.
Since I upgraded it.
Tony downgraded. He tuned it down for the pod,
That's nice. That's sweet of him.
It's a little too intense. But that thing's a fucking beast, man. You start sacking some artifacts. Like you bust out some treasure shenanigans and your board is like,
or your
stacked.
Opponents bust out some treasure shenanigans. Like that's the thing that I think I always forget, and we as a table usually forget. Like it's any artifact hitting.
Yeah, and just to say what Itch Techic does, when it comes in, it makes a golem token, and then every single time an artifact goes into a graveyard, like yours, your opponents, anyone, you put a +1/+1 counter on all golems you control and itch techic. So it just gets like crazy snowball value. If your opponents are doing treasure shenanigans, it's insane. We almost always forget that it triggers for other people too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By we, I mean Tony.
Yep.
Got him.
Except
Yeah.
when I do it and you're like, that triggers for it's always you and I asking Matt, which is funny because you built it and I played
know.
it.
Because I didn't consider it when I built it because I was goldfishing it so much.
Love that.
Well, what do you think about the salt rating here?
Fucking high salt, man. Very high salt.
Anytime that like an entire behavior is changed with no exceptions, that seems like high salt to me. Like in a normal situation, the context changes things. The context means, oh, I might need to hold my removal for this. Oh, I might actually want this player to have Rebecca out. Context changes things. But if someone is dead set on a certain mentality, there's always a grain of salt kind of, wearing away at that situation, I think.
Yeah.
For me, it's like when you got some like nice food and like it doesn't need salt. Like you're like adding unnecessary salt. Like it's just not needed in this scenario. Like, because that also is kind of a spicy brew. Like I like that concept.
I like that too. What I want to know the genesis of the salt.
Mhm.
Like this story is titled Spontaneous Salt Genesis. Take me back to that original Genesis. What was that game where accidental TPK's opponent got so salty, so tilted that forever they were like, when Rebecca comes down, I'm going to destroy them. Like I must get rid of Rebecca.
That's a good point. That would be curious and good to know.
Well, shall we move on to the second salty story?
Yeah, doubleheader.
Lay it on me.
This one is titled Low Powered, and it goes. I had recently gotten a friend into Commander, but he had only played 1v1. In order to expose him to the full experience of Commander, I decided to take him to an LGS with another buddy of mine. We sat down at a table, and a random player asked if he could join, and we agreed. We told him that one of our pod was brand new and was playing with an unaltered precon, so we would pick decks with a lower power level. I have a feeling I know where this is going.
Yeah, me too.
It's like a tale as old as time.
Yeah.
The new player played the Wyleth Soul of Steel precon. My other friend picks his human tribal, and I played Corona False God Aura deck. Now, I know that the power level debate is vague, and the power level of a deck is subjective, but this rando hears what we said and slaps down a motherfucking first sliver tribal deck and proceeds to pub stomp us. Luckily, this story has a happy ending. The rando says he has time for one more game and says he's pulling out his CDH deck. Me and the veteran player had a non-verbal agreement in that moment to fuck this player over for being a dick 2 games in a row. The new player played AC. The veteran played Jarina Kudrow Human Tribal, different one from the last game, and I played Tiamat Dragon Tribal. We blew that player out of the water, and the AC deck was able to pull a win after that.
That's great.
Yeah, like the highlight of this story is the moment when they silently turn to each other and be like, we gotta fuck this guy, right?
Yeah, they're just like nodding and like locking eyes.
Fucking
we
love
know
it. Just in like
we
the
know
moment.
what to do. That's something that's never happened to me, I gotta say. I mean, I don't play at a lot of LGSs, so I don't really encounter pub stompers. I think the only time I ever really got pub stomp was like a really long time ago. God, maybe like 8 years ago when I used to play at an LGS called The Wiz, which some people might know in like the greater Boston area.
I only know it
Worcester
as the
area?
musical.
Yeah, I don't know it.
But anyways, that was the only time I got pub stomp. Somebody was like, hey, you guys want to play some Commander games? And we were like, yeah, totally. This is back when my deck still sucked ass. And this dude busted out like a Nekusar deck and just like shredded us. And we were just, we like turned to each other and we were like, yeah, like let's beat on this guy. But we still lost. Like we were just trying to, we're just trying to survive. It was less like, yeah, let's fucking get this guy. It was more like, oh my God, what can we do?
Can we do anything?
How do we survive?
Yeah, I love those moments. I also think it's a hell of an introduction for this new player to bring him in. And,
Right.
you know, it does kind of show you're going to run into some characters out there in the world playing EDH, and you're going to run into people that want to bring stupidly high powered stuff to a pod that doesn't need it in the moment. So Not a bad introduction, honestly, if a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, busting out the CDH deck is just always so weird to me.
Yeah, I
don't
would
get
never
that.
want to play a CDH deck into non-CDH decks. Just doesn't
Yeah.
feel. It just doesn't feel right.
It just
Well,
doesn't
'cause
sound fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, even if I've had one or two games where I unintentionally was like above what everybody else was playing. And like, it doesn't feel good. You're just like, oh, you literally can't do anything. So I
Yeah.
am just going to win right now.
Yeah, especially with a
It's like
new
the game
player.
is over.
One of the things I hate most, and this transcends games too, is like if you're playing against someone that's new in a game and you're trying to teach them something, and then you get to a state where you're like, okay, well, you can't really do much about what I've got going on. Sorry, like I'm just about to beat you. Here's why. And the other player is like, oh, okay. That sucks. Why am I playing this? Like that's the worst. I hate that.
Yeah, right. And that's something that exists. I mean, I guess you can find it in video games and stuff like that, but it feels very unique to TCGs in a way. Because like if I'm playing like Frisbee with somebody, there's no moment in a Frisbee game where I'm like, you can't do anything anymore. I've beaten you. It's over. Like that just doesn't happen. I don't know. It's just very strange. Like I completely agree. I really don't like it when I'm playing a deck that's too powerful. Like I remember I did a tune-up with my Gave Guru of the Spores deck a while ago. This is maybe like during COVID in 2020, and was playing against you guys, and I had put Defense of the Heart in it and Protean Hulk in it.
Yeah.
And it was just like the way that the game ended when I played one of those was like so boring. I was like, all right, I'll Defense of the Heart. And you guys were like, can anyone get rid of it? Nope. All right, I guess the game's over.
I feel like also everybody else like doesn't care, which makes it feel bad. It's like, okay, so we're just gonna play another one now, right? Like,
yeah,
like they don't care. Like you're like popping off and they don't give a shit.
Because there's like no hope. There's like no hope in stopping it,
I think there's also an element of it being like some of those combo things are like it is like the line. There's like one or two lines, like everybody knows it. You don't even need to play it out because you're just like, I know it. Like it's fine, let's move on. So you don't even get to watch. Like I feel like when you have jankier like wins and stuff, it's like, oh, but I do this thing to untap that, to do this, exactly. To do that, and like maybe I'm gonna kill you, maybe I'm not. Like it's like exciting, and then this is just like, nope, it's over, and you can't do anything. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah,
like,
don't get to like walk through my 4-card combo and Gave and be like, and then I sack this and do that. Sometimes I do. Sometimes if someone's like, what's the combo again? I'm like, okay, I'll demonstrate it. But usually it's like, and then I get the combo and I win, which is fine. Like that type of stuff is fine at a certain power level. And I feel fine at a certain power level doing it. But if I was doing that against precons and I was like, and I win, it's like, Yeah. But like in CDH, there's an option for other players to interact. It's like, even when those inevitable wins come in CDH where it's like, and I do this, and that, and then I win, it's still like pretty tense up until the last moment because people are trying to fight, or they either like, you just had a crazy stack battle and the person who's winning rightfully does it because they're swooping in,
Yeah, exactly. Like in CDH, the wins themselves aren't very interesting, but the way that you get there is always through a lot of interaction. It's usually a pretty interesting path. Whereas in like casual, it's usually kind of the opposite. Like getting there is often just like playing a bunch of pieces that slowly add together. And then the thing that you end up with in the end is some cool engine or some cool, combat step or something that is like more interesting. So it's just kind of flipped between those two.
This is kind of an interesting thing. I don't know if we've talked about this, but we'll probably get a question about it at some point if we haven't already. But I will say, like, what makes Craterhoof more interesting than some kind of combo win? Like it's still just playing one card and it ends the game. But is the fact that it has like big power, everyone's like, whoa, a 15-15 coming at me.
It's so Timmy.
It's not just that that's going to win too, though, right? Like you have to have a board state. Like if you just play Craterhoof, it's like, okay, swing at me, fucking hoe.
And I'm just saying,
you can't just have like
take it to the face.
I'm just saying that there's there's this thing where not always, but a lot of people disparage combo wins. And then things like Crater Hoof, I mean, I'm sure some people disparage those too, but they just feel way more accepted to be like, and it's a very similar thing. It's a card that when played at the right moment is going to win you the game right in that moment. But when people get crushed by Crater Hoof, they're like, wow, good game. And when they get comboed out, they're like, you fucking piece of shit. Those are drastic examples.
I think it just comes down to a lot of people perceive any way that's not just strictly combat damage as a win, as like an alternate win con, and find those not very interesting. It's like, but I always like to remember that a lot of those weird win cons have existed in Magic for an extremely long time. Like some of the early degenerate stuff is like drain decks and stuff. So it's not like the game has gone this long time without other things besides combat damage.
Yeah, for real. Well,
for sure.
What do we feel about the salt rating here?
I mean, this one's big salt too, but this is like a different kind of salt, where that first one is a really salty player, that first story. This one is like a salty situation. Like, I would go crazy if someone was being a dickhead like this at a table. And hopefully I'd be able to give my friend the eye and band together and, knock that person out.
Yep.
That quick side eye,
Exactly.
This is kind of like that Guillaume's Kitchen story we heard the other day too, where you get three people together that kind of know what they're looking for, are on the same page, and then you get someone that shows up and wants something very different from that.
Yeah, way different.
And it's not even like the deck matching problem is an issue, but it's always an attitude problem that leads to that of like why you're trying to sit down to play. Totally. And it's not just like to play something that fits with what other people are playing.
Yeah, like those people are sitting down to stomp, like it's the pub stomp name. Like they want to crush a group of people with very little resistance, and they find that fun. Yeah. I mean, I think if you want to see your deck pop off in a fast way, goldfish it, man.
Yeah.
It's literally the same thing because you're playing with nobody.
Yeah. Or just bring some friends over and be like, hey, watch me goldfish this deck. And they're like, that's cool.
Dude, wow, that's great. We joke, but Pat and I have been doing that a lot.
Dude, I guess you have definitely done that.
I've been doing that.
Definitely done that. It's fun. It's cool
even
to see how decks pop off.
It's pretty good with CEDH decks too. It's like, and now I do this and this, and I don't need to worry about all my stuff getting countered because there aren't three other players.
Yeah, that is the one danger of goldfishing. Is I think you mentioned this once, Mike. You're like, all these removal cards in my deck are pointless. I'm just gonna cut them. They're all dead weight in my hand.
Yeah,
it's hard to factor in for that shit. Well, thank you, Accidental TPK. Appreciate the salt. Shall we move on, boys?
Another one
indeed. This one comes to us. This was a email submission, and it comes to us from user Antifairy, like AN Teferi, the anti-Teferi,
not Ann Teferi.
Well, it's Antifairy, but
not anal tea.
Yeah, is this anal tea? Anyone that's showing up where this is their first episode is like,
so
excuse me.
Anal tea.
God.
The least refreshing summertime drink.
Oh no. Oh God, man. What a horrible image.
I showed immense restraint for not telling that joke in the last episode. We talked about anal tea.
Yeah, not enough restraint though, because it showed up here.
Well, if you know me, I am a man of little restraint. I mean, we talked about when we were in Vegas, we talked about how quickly I succumb to peer pressure. It's like so easily. If I'm like, I'm not going to do that, and someone's like, you should, I'll be like, yeah, you're right.
No, someone will be like, you'll be like, I'm not going to do that. And Mike's going to be like, okay, I will. And then you're like, all right, I will. Fine.
Yeah, it was that. I was like, fine.
Yeah, it's even worse.
Making me.
Like, fine, I guess I will then. You're like, I'm not asking you to. And I'm like, Don't
Please
ask me
don't-
again, Mike, because I'm
do
gonna
what-
do it already.
Only do what you want to do, Sam. Fine, twist my arm.
That's exactly how it is. Oh man. My wife would agree so wholeheartedly if she heard this. It's my entire life, man.
Well, Sam, can I pressure you into reading us another mail time here?
Yeah, I'd love to, Mike. I'd live for your approval. So this one is titled Ever Scoop Because of a Soul Ring?
No.
Well, we'll see. And it goes. At my local LGS, my wife and I sat down to play with two players from outside our normal play group. I can't remember the exact decks being played, but 3 of the 4 were pre-con level. The 4th was run by a player who has earned the nickname Xerox. He typically shows up to the store with sheets of cards that he's printed out, cuts them, and sleeves them up for games. I don't have an issue with proxies, but it seems that he loves high-powered decks and salty strategies and running them at lower power tables. In this case, it was a mono-black Erebus sacrifice deck. He downplayed the power level of his deck during the Rule Zero conversation. Oh, this sounds familiar. So, needless to say, with no creatures, no meaningful way to interact, we got stomped. I was salty about what I felt was dishonest discussion about his deck. Unfortunately for him, I'm not the type of player to say I won't play with someone. I wanted him to not wish to play against me. So I pulled out my pet deck, Anawan, the Ruin Thief Rogue Tribal deck. His first turn, he played a Swamp and a Soul Ring. My first turn went Island, Mana Crypt, Thieving Skydiver, targeting his Soul Ring. He scooped. He now warns people that I should be taken out first whenever he sees me playing. We've played a few times since then, but the mission was accomplished.
I love that.
That's great.
I'm such a big fan of this. And I love the like self-awareness to know that you're not someone that wants to just like exclude someone that and say you're not going to play with them too.
Yeah.
Because I think we give that advice sometimes too. We're like, if you can help it, try to not play with that player. And that works for a lot of people. But yeah, just deciding to make a play that states your opinion is a pretty good way of doing it, especially when like this play, the Mana Crypt, Thieving Skydiver, stealing a Soul Ring.
Well, it was a Soul Ring in the moment.
A Soul Ring, acquiring a Soul Ring. That is like, if you're sitting at the table and that's in your hand, there's a very slim chance that is not the like best play for you to make.
Oh, 100%.
Like that's setting you up for an insane next turn, and it's like completely demolishing that person's turn. Like it's very strong play to make. So the other player can't even be grumpy of it as like, it's not even spite. It's just like, it just roasted them.
Like it hit that other player hard, and it's also optimal play for the rogue deck. I really like this because in our previous story, Accidental TBK talked about how they like ganged up with some friends to knock out this pub stomper. And I like that too. We actually hear a lot of stories about people having to do that. And I think there isn't, like you're saying, Mike, I think sometimes you do need to kind of send that message or, be like, hey, we can play imbalanced decks too, if this is the game you want to play.
Mm-hmm.
But I do love how this is done with a thief deck. Specifically Anawan, because I used to have an Anawan thief deck where I would steal everybody's shit. And this is like living the dream, like stealing someone's turn 1 Soul Ring. And I'm sure that hand that the pub stomper had was like
gas.
You get a hand that has a land and a Soul Ring, and you've shaped your whole game around it. Like you don't need another land in there. You can play that 3-drop. You know what I mean? Like a hand with a Soul Ring in it is often a riskier, more gassed up hand than a typical hand. And if you lose that Soul Ring, man, like sometimes you're just fucked.
Yeah.
You can't do anything after that.
And a thief deck, you were kind of mentioning this, but a thief deck too, or decks that use your opponent's resources are generally just an excellent way of kind of flattening out the power level of something. Probably not if you're running a Mana Crypt in your thief deck, but like otherwise, you're using other people's stuff. So if everyone is running really high power decks, you're getting high power cards off the top. If people are running kind of mid stuff, you're getting kind of mid stuff. So I think that's a really flexible place to play as well. And I think it's a pretty solid way of like, if someone is running something a little too strong, they'll keep noticing it because all their stuff is getting thrown back in their face.
It's funny because Accidental TPK actually said something like this the other day in the Patreon, where they were saying like the best thing to do when somebody has a really powerful commander or really like broken commander or is playing really broken cards is to steal those cards and use them against that other person.
Yeah.
Which it is true, you know? I mean, Tony, you still shouldn't play Rubinia, but it is true.
I do feel for this person because I feel like I know where that salt's coming from. Like, I feel like I've definitely had like rocks stolen or countered, and you're just like, because you're right. Like, you look at your hand and you're like, all right, sick. I've got like this mana source here. In particular, like when it's like an arcane signet. Sometimes I almost feel like it's worse because that's like, I feel like I've moved into the realm where I play like more multicolored commanders, so colored mana matters.
Yeah, you need that signet.
And so it's like losing that is pretty rough because a lot of times, sometimes that's going to get you into like your draw spell or whatever it is. So it just like totally kind of fucks you. And then you're just top decking until you get something that works. But it's like, it definitely hurts. It doesn't feel good.
Early tempo disruption is so demoralizing. Like losing an early mana source or man, the other day we were playing a game. This might have been a few weeks ago now. We were playing a game with Pat and Nick. And I think it was one of you guys. I don't know if I can remember. Oh no, it was might have been Brett. Who knows? I just named all the possible people it could be. So
You're playing a game.
So we're playing a game, and Nick was playing his Bruvak deck, and he had like a bad start in the previous game, and he was like, I just kept a bad hand. And it was kind of, you know, sometimes you see someone at your table just like not really doing anything, and you're like, that's kind of a bummer. Like they're not having fun. And I could tell Nick was kind of checking out because he just wasn't having a good time because he wasn't doing anything.
So you're hearing synth noises.
Yes, we were hearing synth noises in the background. I was like, can you mute your mic? And he was like, so for the second game, I was like, make sure you mulligan. And he's like, I am. He's like, I got a good hand. I got a good keeper. And it was like turn 1 or turn 2 that Pat played a Winds of Change and just wheeled all of us.
Yeah, immediately.
and Nick's good hand was just like completely gone. And he had another game where he just did fucking nothing the whole game. And he just got like brutalized by that Winds of Change on like turn 1 or 2, which none of us were really expecting it. But man, it came out. I think it was a Nekusar deck. It came out and just like the tempo disruption for all of us. Like you have your turns planned out, how you're going to sequence things was all completely ruined. I think I wheeled into a hand of like 5 or 6 basic lands. It's like, cool. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, woof.
I've actually heard that, give a shout out to our friend Dash Hope 69 on Reddit. Who's a big MLD aficionado.
Yeah.
And he was saying that the best time to play mass land destruction is very early in the game, as early as possible in the game, because it's a tempo hit. If everybody is building their boards and you have like 2 rocks down and the other people don't, that's when you play your MLD, because they're building back from nothing and you're building back from just a little bit more. And it's early enough in the game where generally the salt isn't as huge because it's not a game reset, but it's enough of a tempo hit to give you that advantage where you move ahead.
I mean, if it's turn 4 and someone hits me with land destruction, I guess I'm less salty. Maybe I'm probably fucking annoyed still. Nah, I fuck that. No, nah. Changing my mind. I think that's still trash.
What if it's turn 2?
No, not even turn 2. Unless I have a soul ring, an arcane signet, and like popped out a signet, some other signet, and somebody like wheeled so that I got a full hand out of it, then they
certainly
can do it.
not.
Then that's okay. Then
I'm taking notes. I'm building a deck to do exactly that, and then run mass land destruction.
And
You're
then you
still
better
gonna
not
cry.
complain. Yeah, you better not complain at that point.
If
We have
that
you on
scenario
fucking record.
happens, I will not cry. I will probably be joyous because now I will be ahead.
Then we'll play this back. But see, Mike is building that deck where all of us get that, so you're actually the same.
Then why even do it to begin with, right? That's the
Well, because then he's going to play Vandal Blast and get rid of the rocks that you got.
oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Mono board wipe.
I think there's some truth that disruption early is really strong, but I also think that in a lot of pods, there's like this light gentleman's agreement to not interfere with each other's board as everyone's setting up.
Totally.
And that totally exists. So it is definitely something to be careful about. Don't break that out on the new player, but do break that out on the pub stomper. That's what I love about this story so much.
Or have some of that disruption stuff in your higher power pods, you know? Like in CDH, if it's turn 1, you can guarantee I'm dropping a mental misplay on a soul ring. Like I don't give a fuck.
Every time.
Like that is the right move, you know? And I'd translate that down to high power. Like if I happen to have a mental misplay and we're playing, decks that are at 8 out of 10, I'm fucking crushing that one drop you have because it's the right move.
Yeah. It's sad, but it's right.
It's correct.
Well, how do we feel about the salt rating here?
I think this is just sweet, delicious, beefy candy, man. I love it. Honestly, this makes me want to rebuild my Anawan Rogue deck.
Yep. It's a little salted toffee, I think, right?
Ooh, it is salted toffee. The only problem with that deck is it sucked so much ass playing over webcam. It was like awful.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff I want to be like taking cards out of your deck and you don't see what I'm taking. Like even Praetor's Grasp over webcam.
Oh, yeah.
It's just
impossible.
So bad. You can't do it.
It's actually impossible.
Yeah. I would say it is definitely like salted toffee because I don't like salted toffee and I didn't really love that Anawan deck. I don't even remember. I think it like milled us to death.
Yeah, it was
I think it was like the worst of so many things. It was like milling, stealing people's shit. Like,
yeah, it was milling, stealing, deck disruption as well. I had like 4 or 5 cards where I could just tutor stuff out of your deck and take it or just get rid of it, which is awesome. I distinctly remember using it on Mike and Mike being like, I fucking hate this deck. Mike like broke. It was great. I was like, I'm just going to search through your deck and what's your most powerful card in there? Yeah, take that out.
And you can also tell people salt when you get to situations like that, like depending upon what they tell you. If they're like, you can search my deck, like whatever you find, like that's fine. Or if they feel like this card, like it's like it's Bolus's Citadel. All right, fucking taking that shit.
Okay, I do remember that.
I actually stole. There was one game I was playing Ragavan for like the first time, and it gave Ragavan a bad rap because I fucking popped off.
Oh man!
But it's because I hit Nick. He was playing Adelaide's and whatever. It's the like token copy commander, the Simic one.
Oh, so you're thinking of
isn't it Adelaide's?
No,
that's the wizard one.
Oh, that's the wizard.
The one I briefly made.
Yeah.
Oh,
Adrix and Nev.
Adrix and Nev.
Adrix and Nev.
Basically the same thing. I said basically the same thing. But so I hit him. He had a bribery off the top that I ripped. And he's like, you should target me and you should get a consecrated sphinx. I was like, you're fucking right. That is exactly what I'm going to do. And then I was just like, it was kind of early in the game. I think it was like turn 4.
It was probably like turn
I like
2.
ramped into it.
Yeah, you ramped into it like hard with treasures over a couple turns.
And I was just like fucking living the dream. And everybody's like, oh, that deck's like insane. But really, it was just that I had a fucking consecrated sphinx out. And it's like hasn't done so well since, because you realize that like sometimes you get lucky and you hit a bribery and then you get a consecrated sphinx. And sometimes you hit 3 lands in the same fucking game that you can't even play. True. So you're like, get fucking wrecked.
That game, you also got a Morag Fury of Akum.
Oh, yeah.
And you were getting multiple combat steps and like stealing multiple shit with Ragavan. And it was just so brutal, man. We were actually talking about this the other day because it sounded like you played Ragavan and like didn't do well. And we were talking about how, and Nick said something like, I remember Ragavan being way more powerful.
Yeah, he was like, "Did you tune it down?" And I was like, "No, I just didn't get a consecrated space off the top. Like, I got no value off of the other decks. Like, that's just one of those typical decks where, like, for me, my Ragavan deck is like fucking red good stuff plus like evasion to hope that you.
Yeah.
But it
A
really
little bit of
relies
stealing.
on you like getting things from other people, because red always falls into that trap of like, you know, it's fucking red. Like, you're gonna have no hand and you're just gonna sit there and be like,
Yeah.
I didn't burn you because you have 40 fucking life.
You have like threaten effects in there, right? Like you can steal creatures and attack with them.
Yeah. So I have some of that. But anyway. Did we do the salt rating on this already? Is that what that just was?
We did. Yeah,
we did.
We morphed from the salt rating into talking about your Ragavan deck.
Winning.
What do we say? Do we want to fit in another one? We kind of did 3.
We did kind of do 3.
Give me that time of the week. I think I'm ready for it.
Oh, it's the time of the week.
What time?
I've got
I think
a
it's
really
the
salty one.
Everybody loves it a lot.
What are you guys talking about?
So
What
they
are,
say.
what are we doing?
That time of the week that comes every week. It's the
I'm
salty card.
I'm not
of the
aware.
Week.
Oh,
No, I'm not aware.
oh, yeah, the salty card of the week. Oh, well, I do know that.
Okay,
Yeah, when
great.
you put it like that, like, okay.
Yeah, is that the time of the week where we say, Mike, what's the salty card of the week?
We got there. Let's go.
It is the salty card of the week.
Salty card of the week, yeah.
Oh, I love the end. Yeah, those get me every time. I like know it's coming. Like, I can see you're gonna do it. I think it's
The
such a
warm up. There's a
deep-rooted
deep
thing.
inhale too.
Yeah, I like step back too.
Prep.
I like crouch down a little bit. Hopefully my microphone picked that up because
It got it.
Okay,
got
good.
Definitely got it. Definitely got it.
Well, the salty card of the week this week is Mana Crypt.
Oh, nice. I'm surprised that's on the list.
Interesting.
Oh, it's on the list. So Mana Crypt is a 0 mana artifact. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, Mana Crypt deals 3 damage to you. It has tap, add 2 colorless. So we'll mix it up. Sam, does this one make you salty?
Ooh, wow. I wasn't ready to go first.
No, you never are.
What does that mean?
I have no idea. I have no idea. Cut this. Cut this.
No. Mana Crypt doesn't make me salty at all. In fact, I play it in some casual decks. Like I'm kind of cool with it. I think Mana Crypt is just a super powerful card. In CDH, it slaps. You got to have it in there in the vast majority of decks. There's some very corner case ones where maybe you don't want it. And then in casual, I will say like it is a very powerful accelerant. So in some casual games, you may not want to run it, but I also don't think you need it in the vast majority of casual games. In like high power casual, I've experimented with it, especially in like I ran it in my Gave deck and I ran it in my Roger Ardennes equipment deck. And that's because those decks have a lot of reliance on colorless mana, you know, like for equip costs and things like that. Like having an additional source of colorless that gives you that is really useful. And with Gave, he's so expensive and I run a really lean mana base that I needed that extra bit of acceleration for like the consistency factor. I think in a lot of casual decks, it's going to be skewing. And honestly, the damage can be detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of games where someone's running Mana Crypt in casual and they're just fucking losing every flip ban. Even
they
happens
take
in
like
CDH.
15 damage over the course of the game.
Yeah. And like in CDH, you can deal with that because combat damage isn't as prevalent.
And there's usually only like 4 or 5 flips, you know,
Totally.
in a CDH game. In a casual game where you might go to 15 turns in an insane one, like you might go really long. That crypt is just going to chunk you.
It's going to kill you.
Yeah,
Like,
I think that's a good point that like CDH games are really only going typically like 6-ish turns is on the high side, right? A lot of them are trying to win on turn 2, 3. So if you've got like a meta where you have a lot of like control decks and stuff, it'll go longer. But in general, the the avenue for life to be lost is lower.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, so Tony, does it make you salty?
You know, the missed trigger on the upkeep makes me salty.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
Ooh,
and I mean,
I hear
I've
that,
fucking done
dude.
it too, but it's like when people like don't do it and then they're like halfway through their turn or on the next turn, they realize that they haven't done it like twice. It's like, oh, we got to flip again. My salt usually shows because I'm like, you fucking missed it, so you just have to take the damage, which is not how that works.
I'm definitely a big offender of that.
I feel like that's like a good, I almost want to just be like a house rule of like, if you play Mana Crypt and you miss the trigger, guess what? You fucking just took 3 damage.
Yeah.
I wish that
like a thing, and I do it too. So like,
yeah, I think everyone misses it, but it is annoying.
I wish the trigger just read, if you don't win the flip, Mana Crypt deals 3 damage to you. Because then every time you miss it, oh, you didn't win the flip, so you take the 3 damage.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That's like, we had this conversation, not to go completely off tangent.
Go off, Queen.
We had a conversation the other day about who's responsible for tracking Ristic Study, I think.
Oh,
but we
yeah.
might have also had that
Ristic Study
same
triggers.
conversation for Smothering Tithe. And for Smothering Tithe, you get a treasure unless they pay 2. For Ristic Study, you may draw a card unless they pay 1.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like who's responsible should actually be flipped for that. Like Smothering Tithe, the person drawing should have to remember that they need to pay 2 in order to not give a treasure. Whereas the Ristic Study person has to ask if they're paying the 1. So anywho.
Those May effects are less forgiving when you forget them because you're like, well, you didn't remember, so you're not going to get it, right?
Yeah.
Basically, like that's usually where we default with Ristic. It's like, you didn't remember. Actually, usually we just let the person take it. But if it's like a CDH thing, we'll be like, well, you didn't remember, so you don't get it. You know?
Yeah.
Where the Smothering Tithe, it's like you didn't remember, but you have to get the treasure. You know?
Yeah.
Like there's no it's not a May, like you get the treasure.
It's the drawer that did not remember to pay.
Yeah. I agree with Tony that effects like that add to this like bookkeeping complexity that I don't always love, because when someone forgets, it can be game altering and it can be kind of annoying. Not as much with Mana Crypt, but it certainly adds up. I mean, if your life total gets really, really low and you're like, shit, I forgot 2 flips. It's like, well,
yeah, it can matter.
Yeah, like it can definitely matter.
Like that puts you from 12 to 6. Like,
yeah, totally. The one I always forget is Mana Vault and how it deals 1 damage to you when it's tapped. I'm always forgetting that.
Yeah.
Like I just never think of it. What do you think about this, Mike? How do you feel about Mana Crypt?
Yeah, I second what Tony said. It makes me salty when I miss the triggers because I miss them all the time. And I always feel bad then because I'm like, messing up the game state. I dislike that aspect of it.
I feel like it also like delays it almost because it's like you're in the middle of your turn. You're like popping off doing something, and then you'd be like, "Oh, and I forgot my Mana Crypt, so I'm going to also roll for that
Let's
right
do that
now."
right now.
So
Yeah,
he does that, and then it's like, "Okay, I did get that." Like, dude, like.
But I don't think it makes me salty like as a game piece. I do agree that there's even a place for it in casual Commander sometimes, and one of the places that I think it's kind of okay in a casual list is on like really garbage commanders. Like it's kind of okay if it's just supporting a deck that's otherwise really weak, but the bit of extra mana lets it run at a slightly higher level. I sometimes don't mind when like these stapley type cards are put into low power decks, where like the kind of the shell of it, the things that it's trying to do are pretty low powered anyway. So it just gets a little bit of acceleration to get it there.
That's a good point. It's kind of like the mid range of power levels are really where something like this greatly swings it in favor of one person or the other. Because in high power casual, everyone's already rocking like pretty spicy decks. CDH, obviously, we've talked about that. Low power, it probably doesn't move the needle enough. If you're playing like a low power deck with a 8 mana commander, an extra 2 mana is probably not moving the needle enough to like give you this massive advantage.
Where does it sit on the list, Mike?
So this is pretty deep down there. This is 76th on the spicy cards. And
I agree with that.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Why do you think this card is so high up?
there's a perception with Mana Crypt that like fully encapsulates power mismatch.
Mm-hmm.
Like the turn 1 Mana Crypt. If someone is like, oh, we sat down at a table with someone else, we said, hey, we're all going to play power level 6s, and they turn 1 Mana Crypted, immediately you're like, fuck this person. They're playing a super powerful deck because it's a known powerful card. It's an expensive card, which I think generates some of the salt too.
Yeah,
There's like
it feels
an
like a
exclusivity
sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a signpost of like a very powerful deck that's coming
It's
through.
like, I'm here to fucking slap right now, even if you accidentally just like, that's the best card in the whole fucking deck.
Yeah,
and which
you happen to draw it.
Is bad for you because like it shouldn't be the best card in the deck. Like,
it might be though.
It's the pub stomper's boot.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the
real.
item they're using to just trample on people.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's the sound of it's the sound of the boots coming down a hallway. You see it and you're like, here they come. I know it's coming. They just did like a savannah into, like some OG dual land into a Mana Crypt. I know the pub stomp is coming. I know
these boots are made for walking is like playing in the background and like they're about to they're just lining up your face and their heel.
Totally. And I think that this is one of those cards that's probably on here for a fair bit because of the price,
Yeah.
Like,
which almost feels weird because like I guess I don't remember what it is. It's not Mythic, is it? Or is it?
Yeah,
it's printed at Mythic most recently. I think when it was initially printed, I mean, it was earlier than when Mythic got introduced to the game. So the initial printings are probably at Rare, but
I mean, it's just still
in
going
Double
up,
Masters,
which is
it's at Mythic.
It's like blows my mind because hasn't it been reprinted twice recently? Am I crazy? Is it just once?
Well, it's Double Masters, I think, was the most recent reprint.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can look into it.
And then it was Double Masters, and then before that was the mystery boxes.
Yeah, the
mystery
mystery
that's
boosters.
what it was. Those are the two I'm thinking of. That it was printed in mystery boosters, and
that's when I pulled 2 Mana Crypts from a single box and felt like a fucking god.
Ugh. This card does make me salty because Sam ripped 2 of them from a box.
And then I sold mine to you, Tony, or I traded it to you, Tony. Remember?
Oh, is that how I
the
got
crypt
that
that you have? I traded to you.
Oh yeah, for like a bunch of shit, right?
A bunch of shit, bunch of good shit,
bunch of good shit that I shouldn't have traded because I want all of it again.
I wish I still had the crypt, so I'll trade you back.
Love that.
No, because that was like Finale of Devastation. Like,
oh yeah,
like
never mind. I
Stuff
take
I
it
had in
back.
there. I was gonna say, there's no fucking way you want that back.
Yeah, the finale is. I need that.
Even
need that
just
shit.
the finale, like, and I know there's other good stuff in there too. That I was like, I don't play these color decks really, or decks that do this, and now I definitely fucking do.
You've expanded your horizons a little bit.
Yeah.
That was when we started proxying, and I was like, I don't need 2 Mana Crypts. Like, there's no reason for me to own 2 of these. I can just own 1 and put proxies in decks.
Yeah, that's still real too. You don't even need to own 1.
Yeah, but I think it does. I think, Tony, I think you might agree that owning 1 Mana Crypt does make you like a little bit better than everybody else. Right, Mike? I mean, how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
I mean,
Does
I
Mike
also
not own a Mana Crypt?
I also own a Mana Crypt. So,
Oh, I thought you were hinting that you did. That's why I was really doubling down.
well, I was
on
just
that.
upset that you briefly owned 2.
Didn't Meeks and Leaks get you it? Am I making that up?
I don't think so. I
There
think
was
you
some,
might have
like,
suggested
gift somewhere that
Yeah,
I
some
think
fetch
she had
lands.
like asked
some
for
baller
like.
ass fetch lands.
Oh, okay.
You gave, that's what happened. You like gave her
I think I
recommendations.
gave her a list of us
and the
like these
upper
are
end
things.
was a Mana Crypt.
Yeah.
And you told me after, I was like, I'm so glad that was not. I do not need a gift of a Mana Crypt.
I do.
I mean,
That'd be fucking great. You kidding me?
I wouldn't be sad about it.
I want a
put it
Mana
that way.
Crypt.
Only
It's
if it's the
amazing.
Kaladesh Inventions one.
Oh,
Oh.
God.
Man,
What a card. That is a beautiful card. Yep.
those are hot.
Those are
Those are.
cards that I will never own.
No, me
Yeah, for
neither.
real.
But they're so good.
I like looked once or twice and like I didn't put them in a cart, but like I feel like that's
No.
usually the dangerous thing for me. Like once I put it in a cart and if I've put it in a cart, that's a bad sign.
Yeah.
I'm definitely considering it, but I like wanted to. I feel like I hovered it and I was like, I just can't. Like this
It's
is
crazy
like,
because even like the lamest
they're
Kaladesh
sexy.
invention is like 40 or 50 bucks. And it's like some shitty artifact that's bad.
They're just fucking
Like a
sexy.
dingus egg or something. I don't know what it really is, but
Shouts
it's like
out to Dingus Egg.
it's like not good.
I feel like
And I was
those-
looking at it, I was like, maybe I just buy this. It's like, no, I don't need that. I don't need that shit.
That feels like the someday when I have like a blinged out deck because I won the lottery. Like that level of blinged out
hell
deck,
yeah.
I would have all those.
Oh, definitely, dude. Yeah.
Like I could have like my little Joe Blow, Joe Schmo, like
Joe Blow.
Oh my God.
I'll have my version of
Whoa.
a blinged out deck, which will be like cool, but
You guys want to know something crazy? The Soul Ring Masterwork is actually more expensive than the Mana Crypt.
Oh, definitely, dude. Soul Ring.
yeah.
I think Soul Ring's kind of better than Mana Crypt.
Yeah.
Say that right now.
No.
Yeah, definitely.
No.
No strings attached. And it doesn't come with that pub stomping signpost.
Okay, that's
It
fair.
doesn't let you come in as hot on a turn one, you know?
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But like
Like you could play Keurig turn one with a Mana Crypt in more scenarios than you could play it with a Soul Ring.
I'm talking about like all power levels. I think
I know
think
what you're
Soul
talking
Ring is
about.
better.
I'm just thinking like as a whole, you're probably right. But I think in the scenarios that it's actually should be used for, the Mana
You
Crypt
can-
is always like the better.
Yeah. I mean, the extra mana of acceleration is just crazy. The last thing I'll say about Mana Crypt is play Tavern Scoundrel. Because whenever you flip a coin, you create 2 treasures.
Ooh.
That's some secret Mana Crypt tech for all of you out there.
So any deck that you have a Mana Crypt in, you have to slot in what is it called? A Tavern what?
Tavern Scoundrel.
I can picture the art. I just can't remember the name of the card.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter if the colors are off, just put it behind a land or something and like, yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for the salty card of the week. Thanks for getting salty about it. Or not in this instance.
Yeah, we weren't. We kind of like it. But we're CDH players. Like, what are you gonna think? You know?
Yeah.
We acknowledged the salt. Well, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Howling Salt Mine, everybody. We really appreciate you coming and spending some time with us in the salt mine, you know, hanging out, talking salt. And we appreciate you sending in these wonderful salty stories. If you want to be on a future mail time, send us your salty stories to our Gmail at howlingsaltmine@gmail.com or DM them to us on various social media. You know, we kind of pull them from everywhere. Speaking of the various social media, we are at the Howling Salt Mine on Reddit, the Howling Salt Mine on Instagram, and Howling Salt Mine on Twitter. And you can also find our Patreon, patreon.com/Howling Salt Mine, where we have bonus episodes every month. We have an awesome Discord that we're chatting in. And, you know, if you just want to show some appreciation for the show, give us a little bit of financial support so we can continue to grow and do cool things. That's where you want to do it. So come on in. We got a fun little community that's brewing.
I'm not gonna lie, I felt the need to look up the Kaladesh Inventions.
Oh, absolutely,
cards
yeah.
again.
I could link
And-
if you want.
Sam was
Yeah.
wrong because the Soul Ring is $753, but the Mana Crypt is $863. So
Mike said that. I wasn't me.
fucking trash.
I'm looking at.
I'm not trash, just Mike.
Fucking gutter trash.
TCG.
But, like,
I'm
some of
looking
the
at the foil.
cheapest
Sorry, I'm
ones
looking
are
at
like
the
fucking
foil.
$40 for a Noxious
Oh,
Gear
it's-
Hulk. That's kind
Are
of
they
useful.
only foil?
Noxious Gear
They're
Hulk
only
sucks.
foil, right?
Yeah, they're
Oh,
only
really?
foil.
This is probably
Okay.
before foil was fucking garbage, though. so-
Yeah.
It's kind of always been bad.
What did you look on? Card Kingdom?
You who? You me?
You, Tony.
I'm on
you,
TCG
Tony.
Player,
Oh, I
bruh.
must have fallen recently.
Fucking at me right now.
And give us a 5-star rating on Spotify or wherever you listen to the podcast. That really helps us grow the show.
Nice.
And big shout out, of course, to our buddy JD Burnett for the amazing podcast art that he has given us. If you're in Asheville, North Carolina, go get a tattoo from this dude. I know I want to. I just am not in North Carolina very often, but one of these days,
10,000 subscribers.
I'm coming, Devin. One of these days. Well, thanks again, everybody. Stay salty. And don't forget to draw an additional card during your draw step.
It's the Howling Salt Mine. The Howling Salt Mine.
Well, welcome. Oh, man, I always fuck it up on the first word.
That wasn't even me this time. You literally just...
welcome. Welcome. So bad.
Welcome.
Welcome back to the Howling Salt.
Oh, I hate that
podcast.
so much. I hate that so much. So bad.
Man.
Shit. Edit this out. Edit.
Edit it out. Cut this.
Cut this.
How you doing, Tony? Tony, did you freeze?
I just want to get it right. Oh,
Did Tony
did freeze. Tony froze.
Oh my God. This has never happened before.
No, this is a first.
Wow.
What do? I mean, he could leave and come back.
I have no idea. What do we do?
We could stop the recording, start a new one, and then stitch them together. I'll tell Tony he's gone.
Yeah. Oh, is he coming back?
Oh,
he's back.
Hey.
Was it me?
Yeah, you froze.
It was
dude.
you.
It was funny because my Mike was like looking something up, and I was like, Tony, how's it going? And you were just like,
oh. I like heard that last bit, and I was like, maybe like cut this, and I was like, no, if you don't cut it, fuck him for not having it. And then all of a sudden, like silence, and I was like, oh, sorry, was that too harsh? Then you guys were moving, and I was like, oh no.
So can you imagine the next time Tony says something slightly off, we just have to be like total silence.